press that button. We're going to hit the ready and go button, start broadcast.
All right.
Starting, and stream Facebook. There it is. All right. We're good. We're live.
We are live.
We're back. So just me and you today.
Half an hour late today.
Yeah, not too bad. We're getting better at this.
Just the two of us.
Yeah. Well, what is that song? Just the two of us. All right.
We can make it. Yeah. All right.
So I was telling you. All right. Yeah. So I texted you the other day, and I had this cool idea, weird idea, whatever it is that I wanted to talk about. And essentially, it was the idea that data, like how much good things could happen if there's just data that's collected, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think there's a what would it be, a philosopher or something like that? Somebody, not a philosopher, but scientists essentially predicted that with enough data, if you had everything calculated, you could then predict certain parts of the future.
Yeah.
You know, because
if you have all the variables checked, but you never do.
That's right. Because there's so many goddamn variables. Yeah. Well, and then so the idea is that we take it down to like a health level, right? How cool would it be if you could take all the different variables, like how much food you're eating, how much water you're eating, you know, or drinking, how much, like people wear wearable watches now, the smart watches, having something like that where it's keeping track of your heart rate, it's keeping track of your steps, calories burned.
Those are the first steps. That's the thing, is we're already starting.
Right.
If anything, what we're talking about tonight might be just like forecasting. It might be like future telling.
It could be,
Or it might be like tidbits for like a episode of Black Mirror or something. But like it seems like we are going in the direction of being able to observe like different levels, different measurements of our health, right?
Yeah, we're getting better at it.
We understand that health is like, it's a multifaceted thing that you there's multiple aspects of wellness, for example, you know, and it's like pretty much all parts of your life, and within each of those aspects, there's different ways to measure what contributes to that, and so it's just, there's a lot of measuring. It's, if you like measuring, the more we go into the future, the happier you're going to be, because we're just measuring all sorts of shit.
Exactly. Well, and that's kind of what I was telling you about, how it tied in. Partially what triggered me on this whole idea was that, you know, the idea behind monitoring all the inputs, outputs of a body, like a human body, to then use it for health reasons. But then it's also what's being done in certain types of airplanes do this, where they literally monitor all the inputs, the outputs, the temperatures, everything that's going on within a certain engine, and then it's sent back, and you have a whole fleet of engines that are monitored. Then that company looks at all this data and says, okay, where's the outlier? Why is that one failing? Yeah. It sees like a temperature spike here. So if you have that with people, you could do the same thing. You could essentially say, here's all these people. If we have all the data of all the food they're eating, how many miles they're running, you know, is it red meat with vegetables, or is it red meat by itself? All these, you know, because that's the stuff that's missed on a lot of these crazy the surveys that they do.
Sounds like what a doctor does, though. So would this replace doctors? Would it help doctors?
It would help doctors.
You can't get rid of doctors. You need a human at the control panel of their treatment.
That's another conversation, but I'd say no, you don't. I'd say the better person to take care of you is a computer, because a computer does not judge like, oh, I like this guy and maybe he smokes a little too much. Computer's like, no, you smoke too much. You should definitely cut that out.
So what does the computer do at that point, though?
Well, yeah, that's the whole Terminator analogy that we get into real quick, right?
It's like, we're certainly going to see an episode of Black Mirror on this, like, certain thing, and then you're going to probably change your tune on that, because you'll see, like, 10 people get murdered somehow in the process.
Well, no, because Black Mirror is an awesome show, of course, but it's one of those, I see, it's a tough one, because I am such a huge advocate of information being readily available to everybody. Like, that's the whole idea.
Yeah.
One of the big ones that I push for that a lot of people hate is when you get your advertisements in your Instagram feed.
Okay.
Or like your Facebook or something. You ever talk about something?
Oh, the whole like your voice is being, or you're like heard talking about like, oh man, you know, I need to like, I'm looking at, you know, I think I'm gonna get a new house or something like that. I think we're gonna move. You have that conversation with your significant other or something like that, and then all of a sudden, like the next day, you're on Facebook and you see advertisements for like real estate or something like that,
right?
That weren't there before.
Yeah, no, it's both like, conversation, Google searches, every bit of what you're doing, they all take it and put it in this algorithm.
And it's definitely a thing.
Oh yeah, it's a thing.
I swear, I've had that happen with me, and like, here's the thing: is there's no denying that it is a thing. It's like, how do you feel about it? Is like the real question.
Right. Well, most people dislike it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, is I actually like it, because I have a specific example that made me like it. This was like 5 years ago. I remember because I worked at Metro Cable, and I was looking for cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent about 2 days on the internet, and every one of my Google searches had something to do with a DSLR. And then, lo and behold, I'm scrolling through my Facebook, and I find this model. It's actually the one that's looking at you right now. It's a Panasonic Lumix G7, I think. Point is that I would have not found that nearly as quickly had it not just popped up in my feed.
Yeah.
So I clicked on it, and I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what I want. And suddenly, it was like, it was a good thing. I had no problem with it. Granted, I understood that they're doing, now I've noticed this over and over again, where I've done this on purpose now, because Amazon and all these others, they have algorithms where you search for something, and they'll ship it closer, right? So let's say I'm looking for a microphone. I'll start looking them up, even if I'm not going to buy this week, but if I want to buy one, then when I do hit the go button, guess what shows up in 24 hours? Because it's already been shipped close to me, because they're like, hey, he's looking for a microphone. Let's ship these 3 products close.
Wow, they really... Oh, okay. I did know about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Amazon...
That's crazy.
Granted, I'm running off an article that I read, but it seems like an Amazon move, right?
I'm sure, like, the thing that they're talking about, I'm sure that's true to some extent, like, at least. But, I mean, the thing is it's like... So they have access to this information. Like, private companies are collecting big data on all their consumers, and more or less, like... There's nothing that can be done to fight it at this point. I feel the only battle that can be done is like, to what extent are we going to be privy to the information? Are we going to be allowed access to it? Because there's no stopping that this information is going to be collected by them, and it's going to be amassed into like a profile on us individually, and it's going to be an accurate profile. Because I mean, I can tell you right now,
it's
Google,
more accurate than what we think of ourselves. Unfortunately,
if Google were to make a dossier on me based on all of my like behavior with anything Google related, they would probably have a more complete picture of who I am than I could produce on my own.
Right. It's kind of terrifying, isn't it?
Because they have access to data. Like everything about myself, I would just be getting from here, which this is kind of in terms of like RAM, like accessing the specific information.
The human brain's so flawed in that sense.
Yeah. It's like we're
kind of idiots when it comes to all that.
They could do it much better, and and I've actually relied on. So that's where I'm at right now. Is you can't stop private corporations from amassing all this data, because that's just we're already waist deep in the information era. Like, we're in the middle of it. Yeah. At this point, the only thing that we can really decide is to what extent are we going to be able to like benefit from that information.
Right. Well, and
by having access to it and not having it just be a marketing tool. Yeah.
No, you're entirely right. The thing is because that's something I tried to do that a while back. I had a point where, what was the purpose for it? I think I was just trying to track my day. Because, like, I was working, I was going to school, I was doing this, and then... So I wanted to keep track of how many miles I was driving per day.
Okay.
And instead of just looking it up on Google, I was like, hey, you know what? I know they're tracking me on my phone. Isn't there some sort of app, like, any way that I can get this data back? I want to see a little map of what I'm driving every day.
Oh, yeah. And you found that, right?
I actually never did.
Oh, well, I use that all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, no, that's how I figured out what I was doing last 4th of July.
No shit, what is it?
I was at my buddy Sean's house, and what I did is I have
well, this
you can go on your locations, so you can go on your Google. Okay. I think I use Google Maps.
All right.
And so you can go on like locations.
Yeah.
As long as you always pretty much have your locator on your phone.
Yeah, I let it run. Yeah.
You can see like a map, and it'll show you. It'll tell you when you're driving, when you're walking, when you're running.
Shit.
It'll tell you when you're running.
Yeah.
It'll tell me my run routes. That's what I like.
I can finally solve the mystery of what happened at the state fair 2 years ago.
You damn well. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for about a year now. I think 2 years. They've probably been going back 2 years. Like it was only a year ago that I became aware of this.
Now here's another. I just thought of this. This is an entirely new use for this. But so going back to the state fair, a few of the friends that we've got are aware of that. We went to the state fair. It was me, Jeff, and Nathan. Me and Jeff have no clue to this day how the fuck that whole thing ended. Right? Nate knows because he was in jail.
I do know this story.
Yeah, you know this story. So, and I'm trying to... I looked up my Uber receipts. I didn't take an Uber back. My keys were here. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know how we got back from the state fair. I don't know if cops took us home or if it was a taxi or what. But
maybe
the point
they
is...
threw you in an Uber or something?
Somebody had to order it for us. Jeff checked his Uber receipts. Nobody knows how we got home. Now, if we could access the data that our phones were collecting... We could A, find out that B, we didn't walk home, because that's a possibility, but we don't know. We find out we didn't walk home. We found out we were driven. Okay, point A. Now, if things are like we all assume they are, where they're recording us through our phones, if we can get some recordings of what's going on.
What was this, State Fair 2016?
Yeah, I think it was 2016, because this 2018's coming. Yeah, 2016.
Dude.
So yeah, going back into the archives.
You could probably find out. Yeah, you could almost certainly find out.
So here's the worst part, is that somebody else knows what happened, and we don't. I want my own access to my data just to simply find out things like that.
All right, so this is a good segue to another thing that I want to bring up on this topic, and that is, so when a private company has information of yours, does anybody know it besides you? And I would say in a lot of cases, no. Because for somebody else to know it, that would mean that the information would have to be logged by the private company, and somebody would have to have observed it. But I would say that a lot of information that's logged by our phones probably never sees human eyes or human ears.
I think a lot of
it just sits there, and there's keywords that are tagged to like all these different things.
Algorithm style,
And so in the case of like if a real estate company is looking on people that they need to market to, then they'll market to people who have discussed, or if our theory is correct, people who have discussed buying a house or something. They would appeal to those people, but it's just simply like a matter of like who's interested in real estate, and then a list of names would come up. It's so impersonal. That's the thing that I feel safe about it is there's so much information. I'm not worried about any of my deep dark secrets being revealed, because it's a needle in the haystack.
And that's the joke that always goes out, is people are like, well, some guy at NSA is having a really boring time watching my shit. Truth is, it's not even somebody watching your stuff. It's really interpersonal. So you like all the embarrassing things nobody actually really sees, because it's kind of like, because I have Amazon Alexas right around the house, and it's kind of creepy because there's a actual point inside the app that you can go through and hear. You can press listen to last commands, and you can hear yourself. Actually, it's a whole history, and you can hear yourself say, Alexa, turn on the lights, whatever it is that you're saying. You can hear it, and that kind of really, it just brings it to the reality that
it's always recording.
It's always recording.
It's always going.
Yeah, it only indexes the things that matter to it. Yeah,
it's always freaking going.
Always
taking in all that information. It's so much information.
Right.
And I'm with you. I'm a big fan of information collecting. I think that there is a strong correlation between like what we think of as civilization and like the accumulation of information.
Right. So yeah, to bring it back to what we were originally talking about, though, is it a good or a bad thing? Like greater good or greater bad?
It's how the information's used.
Okay.
Does it serve it has to serve a public good and not just a private good. Because here's the thing: is my drunken musings on data collection like this right here is being collected by this phone.
Oh, and it's being collected by that. We're of course putting it up ourselves.
And we're putting it out there. We're voluntarily putting it out there, but
it's being indexed all the way through. It should serve
the public good to whatever capability it can. It shouldn't just go to like marketing fodder. It all this data that is being collected. I think that marketing companies that collect this data, I don't know anything about the process, but I assume somehow like a company that's their job is to just simply connect consumers with services or good providers. Their job is to connect the two. I would hope that those companies that have access to this information, they can work alongside another group or organization that does like studies or something like that. Or
right. Well, so that was my next question. What's the good? Like, what's the bad and what's the good? The bad, of course, being trying to make money off of us. Yeah. Well, no, I think the bad's worse than that. I think the bad would be. So what's the example? Have you seen the correlation where they compared Trump's tweets, right, his timestamps, with what was broadcast on Fox News? Okay. And literally, what they broadcast is what he tweets about. Okay. To like the minute. It's almost like they run an article about this. He's like, hey, did they run an article about how people saved somebody from Puerto Rico? Yeah. Actually, I don't think that's how it went down. But then he's like, hey, we did a great job there. Right? Then 10 minutes later, they run an article about how China's trying to do something. And he tweets out about China. Okay. So on a broader scale, the same thing, when we see ads on a day-to-day basis, we're being fed all this information, right? So the question is, are we really truly running on the free will, at that point? Because of so much input, there's multiple studies, whatever, they're more like, I've seen examples of it. There was a show where they took a bunch of advertising agencies, they hired freelance marketers, and they set it up where on the way, in the taxi to the job where they were going to come up with a scheme, an advertising scheme, they would see a kid fall over and drop a bunch of balloons, right? then later on they'd see a guy who's advertising a T-Rex show or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think like maybe a guy wearing a Hawaiian shirt would cross in front of the car and like get hit or bumped or something and yell. And every single one of they did like 5 people in a row. All of them, when they're like, hey, we need a person, some sort of like, you know, the Chester Cheeto or whatever.
A mascot.
We need a mascot to advertise our company. And every single one of them came up with a T-Rex wearing a Hawaiian shirt who was holding balloons. That was their big creative thing. It's because we run off of things that's our input.
Yeah.
Right? So the question is, on a day-to-day basis, what are we really choosing to do versus what's being input to us? You know? So if we're seeing all this stuff filter on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, are we really choosing this on our own, or are we just following this whatever's filtered? You know, that's the scary thing about that net neutrality thing.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thing, and that's one of the problems with the internet is, like, the internet, it's really easy to just market to specific people, and then it's almost like, well, it almost sounds like kind of like the echo chamber problem and like how people get their information is
right.
People don't like receiving information that's contrary to their worldview, so they'll always gravitate towards news sources that appeal to their political bias. And, well, newsflash, there's no news source that doesn't have a bias. Mm-hmm. Every news source has a bias.
Not everything, yeah.
Unless there was a news article that could literally like contain every ounce of information about a thing. But the act of excluding certain bits of information from a report is called bias. So,
yeah.
So everything is bias.
Mm-hmm.
The question is like, there's different levels of bias. Like, I personally think, and I know like this is maybe a controversial opinion, but like, I think NPR is among the less biased of like news sources. They're definitely, they have a left lean. They are biased.
Yeah.
They lean to the left, but they do a better job of representing the other side than say Huffington Post. Which is trash.
Isn't that one of those really liberal? I don't follow them a whole lot.
It's poor journalism, in my opinion.
Are they more an opinion piece, like clickbait?
They do a lot of opinion pieces, which I don't have an opinion. I don't have a problem with opinion.
As long as it's an opinion piece, right?
As long as it's an op-ed.
Yeah.
If it's an op-ed, then fuck it. Like, that's what they're for.
Then
like,
you're good.
Give your opinion. Give analysis. Yeah, give your perspective. Please do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when you're reading something that's supposed to be a news report and you're like, wow, this sounds like an op-ed.
Right.
That's when that's the mark of bad journalism there.
Right.
Yeah.
No, well, it's kind of one of those too. Because there was a guy, like, we obviously don't try to say we're actually an official news source, but there was a guy.
That would be shitty.
Yeah, that would be a horrible.
I mean, we might as well with how low the bar is these days.
Because I haven't done shit for research.
Fuck it, we're an official news source.
No,
everyone.
Man, don't do that. Don't do that. But here's the thing: is you ever hear of Alan Watts?
No.
Alan Watts. So he's actually went down in history as a philosopher. He came from, was he Britain or something? He spent a shitload of time in China.
Okay.
So he was born in the 30s, I believe.
Okay.
Died in the 90s.
Okay.
No, had to be born sooner. Anyways, point is that he was heavy on Taoism, right? You know, the Tao, Tao. That's how you pronounce it. I don't know why. I
don't know too much about it, but it's an Eastern philosophy.
Yeah,
right?
It's Eastern philosophy. He was heavy. He preached it.
That's the yin and the yang, right?
Pretty much.
Kind of. I just know about it from from Civilization. In Civilization, when you do the Taoism religion, right. It's the yin and the yang sign.
That one. Yeah, yin and yang. That's yin and yang. So,
okay.
But the point being that it was fun because I used to watch his YouTube video. Well, the ones that people cut down to nice little like bite-sized bits. They usually put it to music, so it's a little more impressive. But he would preach over and over again that I am not a philosopher. I'm not something to take seriously. I'm just here for your entertainment. But I'm saying what makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And that was his whole theory behind it all. So therefore, it kind of excluded much the way that the comedians do now. They're not actually press. Comedians are satire.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, satire is more realistic than...
They're commentators. They're humorous commentators.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, like, it's amazing how much you'll see the words of comedians. Like, it's like reposted like it's gospel almost.
Right.
Like, I think people view comedians in a high level these days. Like, they almost like... They allow comedians to kind of form their worldviews. I mean, like, one of them is Bill Burr. Like, Bill Burr is a comedian that I've often seen as, like, being one of those who it's like people like him because he's on it. You know, they like they like how he sees things.
Right.
Which, I mean, me personally, I wouldn't base my worldview off of his, like, comedic works, but the guy's funny as hell. And
I actually haven't watched a lot of Bill Burr, so I can't.
Well, I think he, like, does stuff with Joe Rogan a good amount. You probably like him, but I think I'm not entirely positive on that. But Joe Rogan's another type where it's like it's a comedic type person where you're like, yeah, I just kind of like agree with them more or less.
Yeah, well, and for me, it's the 70. I claim it over and over again. It's the 70% rule. Mm-hmm. Where I mean, because even the dude, like, because that's almost where a lot of the inspiration for our whole podcast, whatever the fuck this is, comes from. I was like, man, that looks like fun. What Joe Rogan's doing, I want to do that shit too.
It's just an excuse to drink on camera.
It really is, and it's a great excuse, and it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
If nothing else, well, and here's the thing: is that I found out that there's nothing particularly amazing that's being spoken on a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
Right.
Including this, especially this one.
There's
nothing spectacular being said.
However, it's a whole lot of fun to have just some sort of opinions being heard, like, because you can passively listen to it, right? And so it's a cool thing to put out your opinion. You know, hopefully it makes a good, like, effect on the world. But it's a neat idea, you know. But anyways, bringing it back, because we tried to start off with a topic here, but bringing it way back.
Yeah, we've strayed a little far.
That's all right.
I would say data. Data is
bring it back.
We're talking about data.
Well,
data
the idea of
the 2010s.
Right. Well, the 2010s.
In the 2010s, no, it's because
we're in the 2010s still.
10 years ago on MySpace, I wasn't worrying about this shit.
Yeah, nobody was.
I was worrying about middle school, but like this is like a 2010s problem to me. Like
it's a 2010s and forward.
I'm sure, and forward. Well, this is like when we're all starting. I'm sure like the seeds were planted. You know, probably in the freaking 90s.
So here's the thing too: is you think about. Way back in... When do you think the credit card was invented? This is something we should be able to look up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or there was someone who...
say like the 60s? Because the 70s had credit cards, right?
I don't know, man. That's something I've kind of always wondered.
Never wondered it until this moment.
When did plastic currency become a thing in the marketplace?
But you realize that the moment we went from cold hard cash transactions to plastic currency, swiping a card, that was the moment that your bank could keep track of everything you're purchasing. Well, not everything, but a large majority. You could get a picture. It could paint a picture now of you by your purchases.
That's true, because
the
currency, the thing that you're using as currency, you're getting it back. Mm-hmm. It's something that you're carrying with you. It's like, I mean, cash was like a fiat currency on its own. It was like the first, but you're giving up that cash. No, that's a good point. That is a good observation. Like, the credit card and the debit card were truly like the first things that we were like, it creates a portrait of like what we consume. You know, Dad, this is actually kind of a funny story. Dad, he had access to my bank for like the longest time because we were like, because I worked for him so much that it was important that we were under the same bank, so that way he could wire me money easily. Yeah. So I can get paid for my service, what I'm doing for him.
They have like 50 million apps for that now. There's like Venmo and PayPal and Squarespace, or I don't know, whatever the fuck.
And those are two like newfangled for me. Good luck with Dad.
So here's the thing: is I can run them off, but I don't use any of these.
But so anyways, for the longest time, Dad had like access to it. And I was like really nervous. I don't think he could see like what I'm spending my money on. But it's just like, that's very personal. That's a very personal thing.
I used to freak out about phone. Do you remember? Because our phones went through our parents when we were kids. And I used to be like, shit, they're going to know who I'm calling all the time. Yeah. And it wasn't like a big deal because I wasn't calling a bunch of weird people. But I remember one of the sleepovers when we were like 13, 14 or whatever, we all called like one of those sex lines.
You were worried about getting a bill for that.
I was terrified, Because we're all like, man, what's going to happen? I'm like, fuck, I used my phone for that. I was a dumbass,
Chris, what were you guys like? What was your like best case scenario for what was going to go down with that phone call?
Well, we were all like 12. We had never called a sex line. We're like, what's going to happen? This girl's going to start talking about.
Yeah, or they're gonna like bring like a clown car full of like prostitutes or something.
No, we didn't even. We assumed something more like you see sex driver. She's like, "You like to party?" We're like, "Yeah, we like to party." That was pretty much on the level that we were. We're like, "Wait,
I like to party.
You have boobs? Are you touching your boob?" Like that was our excitement level, back then. But no, once again, man, we're bad at staying on topic here.
Yeah, this is all.
Well, it's data though. So here's the thing: is painting a big picture. they could find out that I was calling phone sex lines at 13 with my friends, and since then, like, phones, what else? Like, purchases, everything, you know, are these all good, used for good or bad? Or, I mean, I guess ultimately the biggest question here is, can these be used for good? Or will they? Because, of course, they can.
The only, I would say the best way they could be used for good is just simply if that information, if that data, that big data, can just be used as like a little data pool for whatever studies in the future. It's just, I want it to be there. Like, a lot of this information, a lot of it will go unused, but it just needs to sit there in digital space and digital storage. So that way, whatever scientific questions we need to answer, and then we need that large amount of data to like interpret from, it just needs to sit there for that reason.
See, that's positive as hell, and that's what I always think, because I have this optimistic outlook on scientists and humans and all that. For the most part, I think that most people are out there to do good in the world, right? And so therefore, for me, if I had access to this, I'd be like, how can I use it for my benefit? You know, that's how my own data that I keep, how can I use it for my good? Like, I've noticed this when I tracked, there was a point where I tracked literally every mile that I went through in my truck.
Yeah.
And from what I found, I calculated out, like, it was kind of fun, you know, just toying around with it. I knew how many miles I'd driven per week. I knew how much money I was spending per week on gas. I knew on average, because I didn't keep track of time, but I knew that at 60 miles an hour takes a mile a minute, right? No, I'm sorry. That's well, that's correct. Yeah. So yeah, 60 miles an hour is a mile a minute, and then any less, like around town, I figure would be about 2 miles a minute. So I averaged, what was that, 1.35 or 1.75 miles per minute. From the amount of miles I'm doing a week, I can calculate how much time I'm probably sitting in my truck per week. I realized I was spending like 9 hours per week in my truck. I was spending 40 hours a week at work. I was spending, you know, like, you can deduce all these things, and I'm like, you know what, I should this justified. I need a new radio for my truck because I'm miserable sitting there punching these old ass buttons.
It gives you a new perspective on your own life. You're like, you're breaking it down in terms of like just logically, like, where am I spending the most time? These are the environments.
Where should I? Yeah, what environment should I make more pleasurable for myself? You know, like, hey, should I get one of those cool vibrator seats for the truck? Fuck yeah, I'm sitting in the truck a lot. All right, cool. You know,
well, that's how I got into audiobooks. Back when I was going to college, I realized I was doing a lot of commute time, going to and from school. I can get a lot of reading done in that, you know, a lot of pleasure reading. It's good to have access to that information. I want to do a little bit of a shout out, I guess. I'm on Reddit. So I go on Reddit, reddit.com. I'm a Redditor, and there's this community on there called Data is Beautiful. And what's great is I've noticed that, like, lately in the last couple of years, there's been like several users who have gone on there, and they're usually either in high school or in college. But what they'll do is they'll break down the amount of time that they spend every day doing different things.
No way.
In college, with a significant other. I'm in work right now. You know, this is rec time. You know, like, I'm sure when they're jacking off, that's under like the recreational bar. You know, they're not gonna like give you the dirty details to that level, but it's cool because then they'll present it. That subreddit is all about, it's not just data collection, it's how you present data.
Right.
Because
that's a huge thing, yeah.
It's a huge thing. It's actually probably the most underlooked things when it comes to data is how it's presented. Because data by itself is useless. They're words. But it's how they're interpreted. That's the only thing that matters.
So that's
is
the
how
scary
data
thing.
is interpreted.
So the question is, too, on top of that, my example, of course, goes back to this particular, given my current work stat, where I'm working in aviation, right? We work on these planes. These planes have this massive data collection on that engine, and it all goes back to the engineers. Ultimately, it's a human, though, that deduces the data, right? So, once again, we still have a bias because that person, it's an investigation. Ultimately, you know, you look at kind of like the same way we would with human health. You know, you have this data of all these people and what they're eating. You know, is it meat? Is it this? Is that? Are they drinking a lot? Are they exercising? You're trying to figure out what causes diseases, what cures them, what keeps people healthy, all that. Ultimately, though, it's someone sitting there, and the problem is if they go, drinking a bunch of water doesn't really have a lot to do with it, you know, then that's going to be overlooked as a problem, you know, because you have to find a way to sift through that data. That means nixing things that don't seem to matter. it's kind of it's a tricky one, right? I mean,
yeah, it's just simply like you have to have kind of a good reason for overlooking certain types of information.
Am I underestimating the power of algorithms here too? Like if you throw
a
computer, because you throw a computer at it, the computer will be like, all right, this is the pool of people that have this thing, and it finds trends.
Yeah,
It's something that even humans wouldn't. So maybe that's it. But that's what I like to think though, is that they're going to create these algorithms for good, not for bad, because you can also just as easily say this person has an addictive personality for this, or they're likely to do this, you know.
I guess it's at best technology. You're talking about like trend finding. At best, technology can only find trends, but just because you find a trend doesn't mean you can necessarily interpret it. You know?
Right. Well, then there's the correlation versus causation.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's what humans. That's why like humans will always be a necessary component of the whole thing.
Say that now.
It's just simply they're
computers
the ones
are smart as shit.
They
dude.
analyze. Yeah.
It's a terrifying thought, but computers are smart as shit. Like, I believe at some point, everything that humans do, computers will be able to do better.
The only things that computers can't do better than humans
is be a human.
Yeah, exactly. Be human. Things like music, drama. The human experience.
Here's the scary part. You heard about the computer that makes its music from scratch?
Okay. No, I haven't heard of that.
Okay, I'll have to find it.
I've heard of it, but I remember if I did hear about it, I was skeptical about it just through the way it was like described.
So I watched a thing on YouTube or I don't know where I found it. Might have been when I was laid up with my broken leg and I was just watching a YouTube video after. But the point is they had this computer that would create compositions. And they basically inputted all the different compositions by all the greatest artists. You know, you got Beethoven, Chopin. There it is. But nonetheless, you got all these great composers that they're putting into this algorithm, and it would spit out, judging from like the way it flowed, it would create a completely new one that's never been made before. They were beautiful. It was some of the most beautiful piano work I've ever heard in my life, and it had no soul. It was kind of scary.
Well, here's when I will be impressed, is when one of those like algorithm-based music creator things creates a song that like tops the charts and creates a cultural movement. But until then, it's gonna be shit like
I don't think
Gangnam Style.
So here's the problem with what you're just saying. What topped the charts not too long ago? Gangnam Style did. Like all this really basic music is what makes it to the tops.
All right, we're gonna fight
and that's
on
extremely
camera.
No, it's extremely. Now here's something that can't be replicated, in my opinion. We'll fight on camera, but here's what I think can't be: is the outliers. Where the fuck did punk music come from? Right, like.
Establishment. It's
fight the establishment.
It's all politically based.
Now that's something that until it happened couldn't be predicted. Right?
It's because it's people. It's social. That's like I'm a history major, but more than that, I'm a social studies major. I think of myself as, and that's the reason why I'm so confident that like computers will never replace humans is because they're fucking computers. They're not. They're too smart.
Right.
People love the fact that people are dumb. Like. So much of what I feel like that is like the number one thing that makes people is that they're dumb.
Right.
And that's what we love. It's irrational. It's the whole irrational aspect of it. It's the unpredictability. It's unpredictability. That's what it's about. That's what drives pop music. It's what you don't see coming. That's why Rebecca Black, she wrote that song about Friday, and that was like a meme. You know, people dogged on that song, but they liked it. They liked it.
Right. So
they wouldn't have shared it so much. It wouldn't have as many views as it has if people didn't like it to some extent because it's flawed.
To go back on that one point you just had, though, the unpredictability, isn't that the human experience?
That is the human experience.
Right?
Chaos.
It's chaos, right?
We relate to it. It's because we relate to it.
Yeah.
We strive for order, but we relate to chaos.
Well, we relate to chaos, but that's what really gets us going, is that unknown that we do, and the things that make no sense. You know, it's kind of an interesting one. You ever listen to Jason Silva?
Sounds familiar. Sounds very familiar. Who's Jason Silva? He's
a quoted a philosopher. Or I guess he's a philosopher. He's pretty young.
Okay.
I want to put him in his 30s.
Okay.
Maybe 30s. You ever? Let me go on another one. You ever seen Waking Life?
No.
shit. Okay, me and Rob have gotten drunk numerous times and watched that movie. Fantastic movie.
I gotta do that too then.
You gotta join us. It's actually probably a better one to get high to, but I don't do that. So,
okay.
But for those of you that do, that would be one of those, you know.
Okay.
Smoke up, watch Waking Life. It's a trippy movie,
you
right?
heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. But the point being, it's about this guy's kind of search because he's lucid dreaming. He's passing in and out of this lucid dream. It's a fantastic movie about sort of a human philosophy, like what the human experience is and all that. And I always kind of put that in line with a lot of what Jason Silva does, because Jason Silva is this guy who teeters on the human experience. He talks about those a lot versus what it's like to cross over into this other realm or blah blah blah, you know. It's I don't know, it's food for thought, if nothing else.
Thought, yeah. The thought always needs more food.
Yeah, always, right?
That's my opinion.
But to say the, you know, rounding back around here, you know, we're pretty bad at this, aren't we? And,
no, I see. Here's the thing: is I think all this is super relevant to the topic at hand, and it's data. It's like people. Maybe we can bring this to a close with this, and that is that, like, the reason why big data is important is because information is important. We need to understand more about what is normal for humans, what isn't normal, and the only way to do that is to just get data and from experiences. We need to get information that pertains to human experiences.
Right.
What is the human experience? There is no the human experience. There's billions of human experiences, and you have to find trends in those in order to, like, really understand what it's all about. And so that, to me, that is why this whole topic is important. Yes, we should be absolutely fucking afraid of the fact that Microsoft and who God knows who can, like, hear all of our conversations. They probably don't give a shit, though.
Let's talk about Apple. Apples are douchebags.
Apple is like, you know what? And they've in the past they've taken stands on, like, there was that whole episode with the FBI, the Samper and thing.
They wouldn't let them get a backdoor into their system.
There's different takes on that, but from my understanding, like, I definitely like the narrative that they didn't give the FBI that backdoor because they were just like, if we give that to you, then that means it's out there, and that puts our consumers at risk.
They've stated that because anything that can be hacked will be hacked. That's the standard rule. Even things that shouldn't be able to be hacked.
Anything
are hacked. Yeah.
It's the internet is boundless when it comes to that source of thing.
Yeah.
Because people like access to information. Knowledge is power.
Right.
Like, Cersei Lannister would say the power is power, but I agree with Peter Baelish that knowledge is power.
No, well, here's the thing. I've only recently heard about this, but that Jeff Bezos guy, he's the founder of Amazon.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I think he just became the richest dude in all history.
He was rich for a while, though.
He's always been rich.
Yeah.
Well, not always. Since the inception of Amazon, he
sprouted from the womb.
He did one of those. Yeah, he sprouted. But holy shit, he's gone more and more. And you know why? It's because literally, like, I found myself using Amazon a shitload, and it's taken over my life. It's too convenient not to.
Yeah.
That's it's kind of scary.
It's all those little things that you would normally go to the store for. You can just, like, if you can wait 2 days for it,
a day, or 12 hours.
That's the dangerous thing, is you're like, ooh, there's this thing where it's like, I want it, and I can wait 2 days for it, but I don't necessarily need it, but you've already purchased it because you're drunk purchasing things for the ninth time this month. Willie, goddamn it, stop purchasing all these things on Amazon. I bought the newest Gran Turismo at one point because I was hanging out with my buddy, and I was like, dude, we love Gran Turismo, don't we? I should just buy that. And I was like, I just did it. I just ordered. I'm like, in 6 hours they're gonna send me an email saying that shit's, like, on its way across the Atlantic, whatever. It's like they'll do whatever needs to happen.
Dude, what was best is, I mean, this has happened a few times, but I was out with a bunch of the dudes, and it was for Tim's bachelor party. We had a bunch of ideas, but I've been drinking, like, Jack Coke since, I don't know, like 11 a.m. And we're like, yeah, we need to get some costumes and stupid shit. And a week later, some shit shows up in the mail. I'm like, I didn't order nothing. And I open it up, I'm like, oh, I got drunk me, bought something for myself. And it was awesome. Yeah. It was a Green Man suit, so we could go run around and kick Tim in the nuts. We never did, which was a really nice thing. He should thank me. He's not thanking me. He should thank me. But, because we very well
You got a green suit?
I got the green suit.
You bought a green, it's one of those green tight suits where it's like, like, the whole thing, like...
Yeah, I'll show you after this, when we're all done, when we wrap it up, like, here. Oh,
I can't remember what his name is.
Charlie Day.
Charlie Day, wait.
From Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, he had the green, okay.
He was the Green Man.
The Green Man.
He'd run around and kick people in the nuts. So we bought one of those. Well, I bought one. Drunk Joe bought one. Sober Joe found it in the mail.
So
it was
on
awesome.
Amazon, when you purchase like a green jumpsuit, it'll be like customers have also purchased steel tip boots.
Yeah, there's that stuff too.
How to kick your foes in the nuts properly.
Here's the problem. It's so damn convenient. I was watching Netflix the other day, and unfortunately, I still have 2 remotes because I have my Amazon Echo, or no, not Echo. It's the Fire TV.
Yeah, Fire Stick.
Fire Stick's got its own remote. Unfortunately, they still don't, and hopefully they index this shit and do something about it. I can't change the volume on my TV without my actual TV remote. Pain in the ass.
That is a pain in the ass.
I'm hoping they fix that soon. But so I've got this, and so I have 2 remotes that I set next to my bed. And the one for the TV finally died. Like the batteries corroded out and shit. And I looked at it, and I was this close to just ordering them on the Amazon, like 12-hour, because the next time I'm gonna use them is the next day, right? I was gonna put up with it. I'm not driving to the store, but they'll just show up at my door. There's a 7-Eleven literally across the street. I think it's like quarter mile.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can go to 7-Eleven, I can buy batteries, I can come back, and I don't. Because it's just that convenient to use Amazon.
That would require putting on pants.
It would require putting on pants. Not to mention it's cheaper to use Amazon.
Deal breaker.
But the pants are probably a deal breaker.
It just boils down to the pants. You really don't even need to look any farther than that.
Actually, that's not... No, because it's not a drive-thru. I'd have to leave the truck. Because if I could stay in the truck, then I'd go do it.
Plus, your neighborhood is kind of a bitch to get out of. Like, if you're...
It's not that bad.
Unless you're turning right, which you never do, because what the hell is, like, that much further down Bradshaw? There's, like, nothing else besides that.
There's a neat little old shitty country bar down there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
Have you been there?
No, but I passed by it.
You should stop in.
Yeah, it looks like a nice little
It's an awesome little place.
Point for most people, I certainly, like, whenever I realize I need to get something, like, let's just say I'm about to do the dishes, I'm like, I need to do the dishes, and I hate it. I go to the dishes, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't have a sponge. Like, there's a sponge, but it's all messy. You're like, I can't do another batch of dishes on the sponge. I can't do that. You realize you have to. I'm looking forward to the day when I can press a button and a little drone will just like...
Have you heard of Amazon? We're going to leave it after this, but real quick, have you heard of the Amazon buttons?
Yeah,
That's literally what you just said.
I know,
You have a sponge button, you have a Tide button, you have a whatever. Don't go on the Tide Pod tangent because we're not going to even address that.
It's too topical.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
People are eating
Tide.
Tide.
No, we're not dealing with that shit. But... No, it's literally like toilet paper. You put one of those, it's a Wi-Fi button that's got a little battery and it only just connects when you press the button, and it's like you run out of toilet paper, you press the button. Guess what's on the way?
I even almost did it for my drumsticks. A little Vic Firth button. That'd be cool.
Dude, I was going to do it with paper towels. I was going to, like, everything that I use, consumables.
You're drumming and then you, like, break a drumstick and you're like, fuck me dead. And you just, like, you hit the button.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome invention. To be honest, it's one of the better inventions of the
21st
century.
It's making consuming too easy. It's like...
Is it? Well, yeah, no, we'll save that for another time.
It's too convenient.
Yeah, too convenient?
Is there such a thing as too convenient? Find out next time. Actually, we're not talking about that next week.
No,
we
don't know. Find out some other time.
Find out eventually.
All right, man.
On the show.
Let's wrap this shit up. We got some drinks to drink elsewhere in a public place with some people. So, yeah, it was great. Actually, this is a great dynamic between the two of them. You know, me and you.
We can do a show just the two of us.
I did. Fuck the other people.
But if you want to be a guest, then come on.
Shameless plug.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, really. Like, hit us up if you want to be a guest. Like, chat about this stuff. I like talking about big things.
All right, man. We're gonna
little people.
We're gonna wrap it up here.
All right.
Let's close this bitch down.
Woo!
Stop broadcast. Yes.